What's up, Internet, and welcome back to the Engadget Podcast. I'm Senior Editor Devindra. This week I'm joined by Senior Reporter Sam Rutherford. Hey, Sam.
Hey, how's it going?
Going okay. And also podcast producer Ben Elman. Hey, Ben.
We've got so much news.
So much news, including a quick update on pretty much everything we talked about last episode. A lot is happening, both in the tech world and in the political world that affects all this too. So this week we'll be diving into some of the updates from the TikTok ban that was not. Some thoughts on that. I have thoughts on the NVIDIA RTX 5090, which I spent a couple days, most of this week reviewing, but I wish I had gotten it earlier. Sam has a lot of thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy S25 launch event, that Unpacked event. And we will all be breaking down kind of the new political order with the new Trump administration. A lot of things have happened, a lot of executive orders, and clearly a sign of like what they plan to do when it comes to the environment, when it comes to the tech industry, all sorts of stuff. As always, if you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcatcher of choice. Leave us a review on iTunes. Drop us an email at podcast@engadget.com. And have to say, I guess not RIP TikTok, although... So here was the thing. Last week we talked about with Chris Abel from Engadget. We talked about the potential TikTok ban coming, and a lot of stuff happened after we recorded. So the Supreme Court unanimously said that they're not going to stop the potential ban, and then TikTok had a bit of a countdown. On Friday and Saturday, I saw a lot of posts from people that were basically, "Here's my last post, RIP. Thanks for all the memories," and something.
Even more than that, it
Yeah.
was tearful.
It
It was
was
so
sad.
many people saying, like, I felt like I built a community. There
Yeah.
were some people who really relied on TikTok for like a significant amount of supplemental income. I saw at least one person who said they had a full-time job, but they still count TikTok as their income from TikTok as like a significant amount of their income that like really
Yeah.
helped them live. This person was not an influencer. They were just like, a person who posted a bunch and eventually got like a couple 100,000 followers.
That's something. I mean, that's every time even if it's like a potentially dangerous service, I don't know, and we'll talk about like all that stuff, but it's a community. Like you're losing your friends, even if you're losing your followers, you're losing like the thing you used to do every day. For me, TikTok was the place where I would love to just like sit and unwind after like the onslaught of bad news and everything.
Yeah.
My daughter and I would love like scrolling it and finding fun videos and stuff. Like just the way you discover things, a lot of fun. I don't know if TikTok meant anything to you, Sam.
No, I mean, I
Mhm.
definitely feel for the people who like when you build up a community and then the whole platform just gets taken offline and you're like,
Mhm.
there's a void in your life. I think that's something that I think everyone can sort of identify in different avenues of their life.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
It's one of those things, yeah.
yeah. As far as like, I'm not a big TikTok user or social media user in general, so
Mhm.
it didn't have as much impact on me. Although, ByteDance,
Yep.
which is TikTok's parent company, they also own some game publishers and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I
that's
couldn't play.
right. Marvel Snap.
Yeah, I couldn't play
Trickle
Marvel
down
Snap
effects,
over the
baby.
weekend, and that was just
Yeah.
like really weird. You like open up the game and says, "Oh, we're gone. We're trying to come back soon," and then hey, we don't know what's gonna happen. And then eventually they did come back, and the game's back
Mhm.
online now. But it's just like that's just like a really weird side effect that like I don't
Yeah.
think people were. They were so focused on TikTok that they didn't think about all the other companies or apps that ByteDance is kind of in charge of.
And
Well,
we
yeah,
should talk about, like, the broader political context here too, but go ahead, Ben. Yep.
Yeah, I can cover both of those things.
Yes, go
So,
for it.
what shut down on Saturday night? It was TikTok, it
Mhm.
was Marvel Snap, it was CapCut, it was eventually Lemonade, which was, I think,
I had
like
not
kind
even
of a
heard of that, but yeah.
yeah, a TikTok like kind of competitor to Instagram or something. It was like a cross between microblogging, Blue Sky, X
Mhm.
style stuff, and
Yeah.
Instagram.
I noticed
And
I was getting invites to Lemonade within TikTok, and I was still like, "What the hell is this?" Yeah.
yes, yeah. So after the Supreme Court upheld the ban on
Mhm.
Friday, TikTok did its big countdown of saying, hey, we're going to be going offline as of Sunday. We're going to be going offline. That's January 19th.
Mhm.
And So everyone was doing their really like tearful posts saying, I'm going to miss everyone so much. I saw one user mention that it felt like the end of 8th grade because everyone
Yes,
knew that
yes.
they were going to different schools, so to
Mhm.
speak,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody knew whether or not they were going to see their internet friends again.
Every time a social network dies, it's that same thing. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Yeah.
So I was hanging out. I was like scrolling to my heart's content on Saturday night, and I figured that we had until like 12:01 Sunday morning, technically.
Mhm.
That didn't happen. Th- The TikTok actually shut down around 10:30 or so.
Mhm.
It threw up a error message once you tried to sign into the app again, like if you closed the app. It said at first, we regret a U.S. law banning TikTok will take effect on January 19 and force us to make our services temporarily unavailable.
Mhm.
We're working to restore service in the U.S. as soon as possible, and we appreciate your support. Please stay tuned. And then within a couple of hours, it changed to a law banning TikTok has been enacted by the US. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok. Unfortunately, that means that you can't use TikTok for now.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with the US on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. Because this was happening the day before a new president was inaugurated on
Mhm.
Monday the 20th. So, President-elect at the time, Trump, said that he really wanted to do something about saving TikTok and that this was one of his first priorities. People were talking a lot about how Democrats really bungled into this situation because
Mhm.
Trump was the one who started the TikTok ban in the first place. He
Yeah.
started it by executive order.
Got it.
Then it was codified into law this past May of 2024 as part of an omnibus bill that ended up funding weapons for Ukraine and Israel as well. So it was kind of like big national security, like helping
Mhm.
our allies sort of thing. So there was a like 12 hours, 14 hours, I think,
14
according to
hours seems about right.
yeah,
Yeah.
according to NPR, that TikTok was not available. And then it just came back, and they're like, "Thank you so much, President Trump. Like, we are looking forward to working with you in the future."
And it's worth pointing out like how very clear that messaging was, because this was a pop-up message we were getting within TikTok, and it was almost as if ByteDance was very much like politicizing its own base to be like, hey, it's up to the Trump administration to save us. Hey, thank you to the Trump administration. Really painting a picture of like who is saved everybody's favorite social network. So
Yeah,
I
that
found that kind of odd for sure.
that's my biggest just frustration with this
Hmm.
whole saga is that Trump originally manufactured the problem and then he gets to come back later and manufacture the solution when it was all a bunch of nonsense to begin with, and it's just like
Yeah.
And
you
also it
like,
was
and then there's gonna be people cheering about, oh, how Trump saved TikTok, and it's like, no, he didn't.
Yep.
It was also manufactured via xenophobia and xenophobia. This was from the time when he was calling COVID-19 the China virus. And
Hmm.
so, of course, this is like the China app or something. So this is
Hmm.
coming from just like 4 sagas ago in, American
And
politics.
now he likes TikTok because TikTok people helped him get elected. He was able to blow up on TikTok.
Allegedly. I mean, I
They
think
they
it was
in
more
they I
that
think they invested a lot of money in promoting his shit on TikTok too. So
I heard
it's
one person mention a figure. Please don't
mhm.
quote me on this, but
Yep.
the figure mentioned that Turning Point USA, the
Mhm.
conservative like political action group for young people, was getting something like 60 million views a month on TikTok.
Mhm.
And the Republican Party, Trump especially, was like, hey, this is really useful to us.
Yeah, and I'm sure we have not seen the numbers yet, but I'm looking at all the money Elon Musk was throwing around to help Trump get elected. No, I'm sure some of that went to TP USA too. We'll probably hear
Oh
about that
yeah.
eventually. We should talk about like where we are right now because we've got a
Yeah.
lot of stuff to
So
cover too. So
yeah.
Trump has
So they just
delayed the TikTok ban for 75 days via an
yeah.
executive order. That's where we are now. There are discussions that he could not have actually promised that TikTok was going to be okay, and the people, serving TikTok in the US, um there's actually no way for him to like assure those companies that they were okay to re-enable TikTok and start serving the site again, because he wasn't president. He was just a guy who was going to be president with no actual powers. But hey, nothing matters anymore, right? So he can say whatever he wants and sort of paint himself as the hero once again. Just a wild state of affairs.
Also, the 70, is it 70 or 75 days?
I see 75 days, at least on our story
Okay. Yeah, so the
from Chris Bell. Yeah.
75-day limit also has no basis in the
Yeah.
actual federal law, because the federal law says that if TikTok makes some significant motion toward divestment and like selling to a US company or something, then you can grant a 90-day extension where TikTok is no longer banned. So that would be 3 months.
Mhm.
So this is like somewhere in the middle. It doesn't agree with the text of the federal law.
Mhm.
Trump is talking about some kind of joint partnership. And let's also remember, like TikTok, yes, does have some kind of connection to like China, Southeast Asia, and all of their like big-headed bureaucrats and strongmen. So who knows if Trump himself is getting rolled by someone who is just a little bit smarter in dealing with leaders with a lot of they think highly of themselves, but they're
Mhm.
not too smart.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I also think it's worth pointing out that the TikTok that came back, this is sort of like a Pet Cemetery situation, if you're all familiar.
People were
Um,
talking about Pet Cemetery. Yes, it felt
what
It's not
came back,
exactly the same one that we had before.
it's a little different. It feels like certain other content is I think people are showing like searches around fascism, searches that were not particularly Trump friendly, were not working really well.
Yeah, the algorithm's
And
just a little bit different.
it's a little bit different. Um a lot of people have been saying that at this point, it almost seems clear that every major social network has basically been co-opted by the right wing, or is at least leaning that way because they wanted to be goody goody with the Trump administration coming in. So that includes Facebook. That certainly includes Twitter slash X. The only one that is sort of like, it's not huge, but it's the one that has sort of prevented this is our lovely Blue Sky, because it's federated and it's avoiding these particular issues. And it also has like a pretty progressive user base. So that's just an interesting situation of where we are. I'm still like occasionally I'm using TikTok now. I'm uploading to TikTok, but I'm like now my feelers are certainly more up in terms of how they're manipulating information, especially after all their begging and praise for the Trump administration ahead of this too. It's all kind of gross. Social media in general. We're just like getting down a dark path. So anything else you guys want to add about where we are now with TikTok?
This is very much a developing story. Stay tuned to Engadget. Stay tuned to your favorite tech news, because the 75-day deadline is
Yeah.
going to be coming up sooner than we think. And who knows what's going to happen.
Who knows what's going to happen? This entire weekend has been like a freaking whirlwind, because like we were following the TikTok news. I knew Chris and a whole bunch of reporters were like keeping an eye on things on the weekend and writing stories over the weekend. And then the inauguration happened, and a whole bunch of more news happened. And I would just love for it to stop, just for a second, for us to catch our breath. Yeah,
Let's talk about a gadget, though, Dev. Let's talk about the 5090.
let's talk about the 5090. And this is NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 5090. This is their flagship GPU. It is $2,000. I spent a big chunk of time reviewing and benchmarking this thing, and I have a couple takeaways. You can check out my review on the site right now. I gave an 88 out of 100. Um, Not because I think it is a perfect card. I wish it was not $2,000. I really wish NVIDIA wasn't out here really pushing the limits of like really just like pushing like the price range of like what a GPU can be. The 3090 I believe was 1500, the 4090 was 1600, and they're just like creeping up and up and up. it's justifiable. It's a little bit justifiable in terms of what the hardware that they actually put in here. Like this thing has 32 gigabytes of DDR7V RAM, 32 gigabytes of RAM in a video card. My entire desktop system has 32 gigabytes of RAM right now. So that's kind of where we are. And I just had to take a minute to just sort of like soak that in. It is wild, like what this card is. It has 91 billion transistors. It has 21,760 CUDA cores. At the same time, it is also thinner. Like it's also skinnier than the 4090 was. The 4090 was a big hunkin' beast. It was a 3-slot card that really took up a chunk of space inside my desktop. This thing is a 2-slot card. It can actually fit into small form factor systems. So it's actually smaller, more efficient, at the same time also more power hungry than the previous card. Just kind of a wild thing. Sam,
Yeah,
when
I saw
they
power
yeah, what
draws of up like 550, 600 watts,
yes.
depending on the use case.
There's in 3D Mark there are benchmarks that you can interact with, like really ray trace benchmarks. So there's one called Speedway. I did the interactive mode so you can like move the camera around and look at characters and stuff. And once I did that, this card was eating 550 watts of power. The card was 100%. The fan was like really blaring, but not like super loud. It's actually not too bad for as far as like a high-end GP goes. And what's really interesting is like as soon as I quit that demo, as soon as I quit any game or something, it gets back down to a really decent idle temperature of like 35 to 40 Celsius. So
Mhm.
under that benchmark, when it was fully underloaded, it was 79 to 80. During most games, it's like 70 Celsius. So these are good temperatures for video cards for people who don't know. And yeah, the actual results too, like benchmarks are good. It's a fast card. I don't know what to tell you. Like it is a $2,000 video card that is significantly faster than the 4090. And also if you add in the stuff around DLSS 4, which is NVIDIA's AI upscaling technology, now it offers multi-frame generation, whereas with DLSS 3.5, the last generation one, that one could generate one frame for every frame that was actually being rendered by the card. So it almost like doubled your FPS. This card, because of the way DLSS 4 works and the increased reliance on AI and tensor cores, this card can basically NVIDIA says like deliver 8 times the frame rates. Essentially, you can generate 3 frames for every frame that's actually being rendered by the card. So that's like a 4x upgrade, they call it too. A lot of frames. Let me tell you how many frames, Sam. The frames include 240 FPS in Cyberpunk 2077 in 4K with all the graphics turned all the way up, with ray tracing overdrive mode on, which is like the really intensive ray tracing too, which is like fully reflective. Just a lot of detail happening there. 240 to 250 FPS just cruising through that game.
Hmm.
Just wild. Like I was a little gobsmacked seeing that number. Um, if I tell you this card can get those frame rates, are you impressed or are you worried about like the potential fake frames, Sam?
I mean, so
Mhm.
the multi-frame generation is sort of its own thing, and there are some issues with that where you still it has its own set of artifacts and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But for me, people have been talking about this idea of like 4K gaming for a long time, and we've never really had like a GPU that could deliver all the bells and whistles,
Yeah.
graphic settings turned to max at 4K until it seems like with this, with the 5090. So
Mhm.
I think for me, that's a really interesting kind of just like, benchmark just like of, where gaming is at today. And even on a personal level, like we were talking about this before the show, where it's like, I
Mhm.
really want to upgrade. I have an older GPU, I have a 2080 Ti, and so
That's a
I'm
good
definitely
card. Yeah.
it's a good card, but like it's old enough. I'm due
Mhm.
for an upgrade, and I want to revamp my rig. And but at the same time, it's like it, I would love to get like the top of the line flagship RTX 5090 card, but $2,000 is like
Yeah.
the entire price of what my desktop CPU cost originally, including
Yeah.
the case and motherboard and all that.
That's your entire system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
my
think
entire system.
Mhm.
So it's
I
like
think
it's really
it's
hard
crazy.
to justify. So
Mhm.
maybe I was like talking like, hey, when the new
Yeah.
cards come out, maybe I'll take a look at the 4090, see what the price drop on that is like, or maybe wait until later in the spring when like the 5070 Ti comes out
Mhm.
or the 5080. and then we'll kind of have like a better idea of like what this whole generation 50 series really looks like in terms
Mhm.
of like price performance and what kind of value you're actually getting from that.
That's a good point. Like, I usually tell people when new hardware comes out, if you don't like, it's not always wise to jump to the most expensive flagship thing. Look at the last gen, see how the prices drop. NVIDIA is saying that the 5070, the RTX 5070, which is $550, is as fast as the 4090 when it comes to frame rates, but it's including these generated frames. So it's
Yeah, yeah.
including AI generated frames that can match the actual FPS value of the 4090. But at the same time, there are a lot of other things DLSS 4 is doing. A lot of that is also going to the older card. So they're doing like more efficient ray tracing generation, more efficient there's all sorts of stuff. The super resolution feature, which is the thing that like delivers higher quality textures, that is more efficient. That's going to be more effective. That's also going to work down to like the 30 series and the 20 series card. So even the card you have, Sam, will get some
Hmm.
benefit from this stuff. But yeah, the question is like, should you invest in something like the 47 or 5070 or 5070 Ti, which I believe is $200 more, or even the 5080, rather than a faster last gen card like the 4090? I cannot, like, just given how involved the 4090 is and how big that card is, I can't imagine that thing is going to drop below $1,000,
Yeah,
when it
and,
comes to
so
like in
it's really
storefronts
it's
and
really
stuff.
going to depend on the market. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Like those cards they probably didn't make too many of those because it's the flagship. Not many people were buying them.
Hmm.
You may find some used, but I really don't
Yeah, I
recommend
don't
buying.
use GPUs especially. I feel like are
Yeah,
such a crapshoot. Where like,
yeah,
hey, you could be lucky and it works great, but then if it doesn't, you're just like you have no warranty, nothing to fall back on, and so
nothing
yeah, that
fallback.
that gets really dicey.
It's like buying a used hot rod because that's how gamers tend to run their GPUs. And these things are they're drawing a lot of power. The fans are doing a lot of work. Like, there are really easy ways for you to like fry a GPU or mess it up if you're overclocking it too much, or you stuff it in a case where there's not enough airflow.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ways for a GPU to go wrong. So I would just be really careful about that.
Yeah.
For your purposes though, Sam, like you're thinking of buying, you're considering like rebuilding your whole rig. So you're going to need a new CPU. You're going to need a
Yep.
new motherboard. You're going to need new faster RAM actually too. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody should justify spending $2,000 on a single video card unless you are a creative professional or a streamer or somebody or an influencer who is doing a lot of like high-end video work, because this thing does crunch through video transcoding faster than anything I've seen before.
Mhm.
If it's the cost of this will help you make money faster, or make content faster, then yeah, that's justifiable. I don't think like that it's a $2,000 video card.
Yeah,
Like on a moral
even for
level,
me,
I'm
it
like,
it it would be
no.
more of an ego purchase. I can't justify the,
Yeah,
like, the gameplay performance that, like, at home that, like I'm like, I'm not streaming, I'm not doing anything with this, I'm not
yeah.
encoding videos.
Do you
So
have
it's
a
like
4K 240 hertz monitor, Sam?
no, and
You need one
but,
of those. Yeah,
so this is all sort of like the big, maybe possible 2025 desktop upgrade for me. It was
yeah,
like I want a new monitor and I want to revamp the rig, and it's like, and when you consider the price of a $2,000 GPU, suddenly things are getting a lot more expensive than I originally budgeted for, and so it's like, all right, gotta come back down
yeah,
to
yeah.
earth.
Also, your children have to eat, so
Yeah,
you can't spend all your money on GPU money.
but the other
So,
thing is like,
It's the classic issue of, like, not wanting to put a Ferrari engine inside, one of those '70s Volkswagen Bugs, right?
mhm,
Like, you need to make sure that the rest of your
yes.
system can catch up or make the best use of
Yeah,
this enormous graphics card.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically.
And the other thing, the kind of think about it in terms of like a more market perspective way is that part of the reason why Nvidia can price the 5090 at $2,000 is because they have no competition.
Mhm.
The AMD does not have an equivalent offering for the 5090, and so you see that jump from $1,600 last generation with the 4090 to 2,000 with the 5090, and it's like we really need more competition in at least in the top end GPU market in order for prices to be a little bit more approachable.
I don't know if that's like AMD is right now saying like they're focusing on the mid range. They're focusing on things that are like slightly more accessible. They're still doing some low end stuff, but Intel actually out of nowhere with their XeSS cards have actually been doing a good job. The Arc
Mhm.
card that I talked about a while ago, $250. There is some price gouging going on there, but you can still get that card for under $300. It's a pretty good deal. It's really up to AMD. to kind of catch up to where NVIDIA is. But AMD, is doing their own thing. Like they're thinking of gaming graphics in other ways because they build the graphics that go in the PlayStation and
Yep,
that
yep.
go in the Xbox, and they think of integrated graphics. They're thinking of like graphics that can be put into consumer boxes at reasonable price points that normal people can buy. They're not as interested in I'm going to make a $2,000 GPU, for crazy gamers.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see what AMD does because they talked about they will have their own form of a neural network upscaling similar to DLSS this year, but they're not. They're doing some frame generation. Once again, though, NVIDIA has like been here earlier. They're doing multi-frame generation, and let me say, in Cyberpunk, in what was it Dragon Age, the Veilguard, which also 250 FPS, everything cranked up 4K. In Star Wars Outlaws, these games look buttery smooth. Like I didn't detect any of the artifacts that I used to see in DLSS. Sometimes in DLSS, like really fringy objects like metal grate or
Hmm.
something far off in the distance would like shimmer a little bit and look a little wrong. That stuff doesn't really appear anymore. They
Yeah.
actually have some new DLSS features that are also going to clean up the way their algorithmic upscaling works. It is rendering these games at a lower resolution than 4K, upscaling them, but also doing all these other magic tricks. But I kind of felt like Cypher in the Matrix, right? I know the steak isn't real. I know the Matrix is telling me that it's delicious and juicy, but I'm so tired. I'm so tired of like the low frame rates and the lack of feasibility for 4K gaming. I'm like, ignorance is bliss, I guess, because I can't really tell. My eyeballs can't tell. It
Hmm.
feels good. The latency is good. Just feels really good. After all that, though, nobody should buy this card. You should not buy this card, Sam. It is irresponsible. It is immoral. It is NVIDIA just totally flexing. I think the 5080, which is going to be $1,000, hey, that's really expensive, but if you can justify it and if you think it'll last you 5 years, sure, go with
Yeah,
God.
that
Yeah.
seems like more of a sweet spot in terms of like value for performance.
Well, I would say the 5070. If that thing really, if you can really get the 5070 at $550, it does a lot of these tricks. You would actually do some pretty decent 4K gaming for people who have maybe 4K 120 hertz monitors, which are
Hmm.
more common. Those have been around for a couple of years. 240 hertz monitors only came out last year and they're really expensive. I think for most people, like that card will actually serve you for 5 years really well.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, because 8K gaming is not a thing. We're not really going too hard beyond 4K. Like 4K is kind of where we're going to be at for
Yeah, I do
many,
not
many
want to think
years.
about 8K gaming in the
Don't
any
think
time
about
in the
8K
near
gaming.
future.
The only thing people are thinking about is maybe higher refresh rate 4K. And I'm like, hey, we hit 240 hertz. You're doing like decent 4K upscaling. We're good. We are good right here. And I was worried about like what this card would mean for the overall market. And you know what? What is going to be the biggest gaming device of this year, Sam?
The Switch 2,
The
obvious.
Switch
Yeah.
2,
I think it's
which
not
is
it's not going to be close either.
it's going to be the Switch 2 by a mile. And even in terms of like PC hardware, I think like the PC handhelds, the gaming PC handhelds, this is a good year for those because those things are getting cheaper. I bought the Retroid Pocket 5 and that thing was like 200 bucks, 250
Hmm.
bucks. Like they're getting so cheap, they're really capable. But the Switch 2 is going to be an affordable consumer device that will not deliver these frame rates. It's not going to render in 4K. It's going to look old. Like a lot of people are assuming it's maybe about as powerful as like a PlayStation 4 Pro, maybe slightly faster than a PlayStation 4, doing good HD, gaming essentially, maybe just kind of solidifying 60 FPS. But it's going to be an underpowered machine
Hmm.
that is meant for mass consumption that has weird features like a joystick that turns into a mouse. That's what matters is going to matter more in the gaming world than a $2,000 GPU. This is a pure NVIDIA flex. Nobody buy this card, even though it's like a freaking unicorn. That's kind of where I'm at with this thing. Yeah. So Ben, any thoughts hearing about this hardware?
I'm thinking that you could really do some serious CAD and SolidWorks work on this.
You could.
That you could definitely like model some protein folding or do
Yeah,
anything
I mean,
else that.
like Devindra
Mhm.
said, if you're using this in a professional manner,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
okay, it makes a lot more sense. But if you're just, a regular home user playing games on it, it's total overkill.
Total over. If you're a video editor, if you're somebody who's dealing with streams, or if you're actually a successful streamer or influencer, then yeah, it may be worth having something like this. But also, a lot of those folks are having other people edit their videos and handle stuff too. So like they're not actually buying the hardware they need to support their stuff. It's a whole thing. 5090, good card. Check out my 2,500 word review of this thing, and please don't buy it. If you buy it, please don't just don't tell the world. Also feel like it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to tell people that you bought an RTX 5090 in this economy, in this world that is about to fall apart. I don't think so. So anyway, that's the 5090. If you have thoughts about this thing, or you have questions that you want me to test, like things you want me to test on the 5090, I am in touch with the people from Topaz who do that really cool software upscaling, the upscaling video software. I want to like do some video upscaling on the 5090 and kind of see what's possible with that thing. So we'll do some of that. Hopefully we'll test the 5070. That's the one I really want to test soon. And yeah, stay tuned for more of our coverage around this stuff. Let's move on to the stuff from Samsung. The Samsung Galaxy S25 event. First off, like what devices were announced, Sam, and were there any major surprises?
Yeah, so this was kind of like as far as it goes in
Hmm.
terms of unpacked events, this is kind of a low key event because we only got three new devices. We got your base S25, your
Yeah.
S25 Plus, and the S25 Ultra. Now, depending on how you're counting, there were a couple other teases for some other devices that I think we'll
Hmm.
get to later. But even some of the people in chat were like, they were kind of giving like big yawn snooze for this event because at least on a hardware level, these are very, very similar to what we got last year, and depending on how you're looking at it, the year before that too, because display basically the same, design
Hmm.
very similar, charging speeds very similar. There's a quirk with kind of the wireless charging, and so the at least the hardware changes comes down to two basic upgrades. Now we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite chip across the board, and that's globally. So that's really, really
Hmm.
nice
That's
for
cool.
Asia and some parts of Europe where they were getting Exynos chips, unlike America where we always get the Qualcomm stuff. So that's really nice to see. It's going to be available globally. Samsung says that it worked, tighter with Qualcomm to kind of.
Hmm.
It's not just an overclocked chip of the regular Snapdragon 8 Elite. They kind of changed some of like the ISPs or some of the individual packets inside the SoC. So it's kind of hard to know for sure how much that affects the overall performance, but that's what they're saying.
Hmm.
And then for the Ultra, just the Ultra, there's a new 50 megapixel ultra wide camera. And that's kind of it in terms of new hardware. Performance, Samsung is claiming, depending if you're looking at the NPU, GPU, or CPU, but about 30 to 40% better performance year over year, and about 18% faster frame rates in Vulkan based gaming. So
Hmm.
that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of like speeds and feeds. Um,
I have to say, looking at the new Ultra, Sam, and that new camera and everything, I hate the way this phone looks. What the?
Yeah, I mean,
It
I don't
is
wanna go off on
weird.
a huge tangent in terms of,
Yeah.
like, just phone design in general has gotten very samey. Basically, you still get the titanium frame on the Ultra, but the whole idea is just, like, you have a very nice metal frame, you have
Hmm.
glass in front and back, and then you have however many number of little dark circles for however many number of cameras you have on the back. And, all the iPhone and Google Pixel does it too. They all kind of look the same in terms of like your standard smartphone that's not a foldable or whatever. And it definitely bums me out. Samsung, okay, and so they probably a good segue to
Hmm.
talk about how Samsung did tease a fourth member of the S25 family in the Galaxy S25 Edge.
Yeah.
And people were saying this is like the most interesting one of the bunch, and they didn't tell us much about it. It's probably not going to go on sale until sometime later this spring or summer, or
So
whatever.
it was just a teaser image. Did
It
anybody
was it
hold
was
it or
just
anything?
a little
Hmm.
teaser. There's a short clip to go with it, and they didn't
Hmm.
tell us any specs, price, or anything about that. But basically, the S25 Edge is basically a super super thin version of the standard S25. At
Hmm.
least that's what it looks like. And there were rumors about an S25 Slim, and basically that's what it looks like the S25 Edge is. But the thing is, Samsung used to make Edge phones long time ago with the Galaxy
Yeah.
S6,
I
S6
remember we
Edge.
were there.
Yeah,
Yes.
the Galaxy Note Edge, the Galaxy S7 Edge, and they had it had a cool like glass edge that you could use it to like put apps on and stuff like that, or at least app icons. But this is just a really, really thin phone, and so it's like, okay, fine, I guess. But
Yeah.
you could do more. And so some people are saying this is the most interesting one of the bunch, and I'm kind of sitting on the opposite side of that because Do you know why I'm not impressed? Because this is basically one half of a foldable phone, and then they
Yeah.
just put a regular screen on top instead of a flexible screen.
And it's like,
And so
what do you
yeah,
do with
so
that?
the thinness is almost, it looks to be exactly the same thinness as like the Galaxy Z Fold,
Uh-huh.
but cut in half, and then they put a glass screen on top.
So they saw those rumors about the ultra thin iPhone. I feel like
Mhm.
Samsung is like, hey, we got to have an ultra thin
100%.
phone, and we got to
Yep.
be for there faster. But I saw people getting excited, like, ooh, screen on the edge, and I was like, we've been doing this for too long because I remember I was thinking,
And
do
just
not
to be
speak
clear,
these.
the
Yeah, yeah,
S25 Edge does not have any of those features. It's just
right.
a regular metal frame, and
Hmm.
so that's, it's a thin phone.
Yeah, I was
I
really
kind of thought we were
thinking.
over the thinness wars in phones in general, but
No,
people are
it's
excited
back.
about it again.
Remember the Narnia phrase, "Do not speak the old magic to me," which I was there when
Mhm.
it was written. I was there when the old, like, Samsung, Edge phones were created, which had, they had some features. They
Yeah,
had,
yeah.
like, weird touch features. This was a full decade before the foldable phones or anything.
Mhm.
Just kinda wild, and that was their one more thing. That was their after all the announcements, we've got one more surprise for you. Were people actually excited for it, Sam?
I think, like I said, it's like
Mhm.
maybe I'm out of touch because I think the idea of like a super thin phone, people are excited about again. Maybe like, younger people are like, I want
They didn't know,
something.
they weren't here for the last Edge phone, so the Samsung could be
Right,
like,
right. And it's
"New
like
feature." Yeah,
they see like the Galaxy Z Flip is like, oh, that's really nice and compact, but I
yeah.
want something a little bit more durable, but still, fits in your pocket easy. I guess that's what the S25 Edge is going to be.
Mhm.
So
Anything, I see some software features, I hear a lot more AI features going on too. Anything notable that you wanna mention there?
yeah, 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 definitely. So this is kind of, another iteration or kind of revamp of Samsung's Galaxy AI suite of software. So they're kind of introducing this kind of concept called AI agents, and that basically means that, like, you can use more natural language controls or voice commands to do things just a little bit easier. And also, a lot of the like existing features have gotten renamed so that they kind of encompass a bunch of different tools all in, one kind of umbrella. So, for example, Smart Select, which has been around forever on Samsung phones, is now called AI Select. Okay, cool.
Okay.
And you can use it to, like, take screenshots, turn videos into GIFs, summarize stories. And so this is kind of like, hey, this is like your vision, sort of like looking at the screen and giving you a bunch of options on what to do with it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's, definitely nice. And definitely makes it easier to use and easier to understand because you're not looking through like a giant menu. And the UI has kind of been changed so that, if you do AI select, it'll kind of put little glowy
Yeah.
highlights around different areas of the screen. So
This
like,
the Siri design! What are
yeah,
we what are we doing, Samsung? We just spent the
but
last year saying Apple's shiny Siri border is kinda pretty, and Samsung's like, "Oh, yeah, it is pretty."
mhm.
Yoink.
And so I think
What? Yeah.
Samsung is like, obviously learning from some of its competitors and figuring out how to make, AI a little bit more approachable. It's
Mhm.
good, not terribly original though.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing for like, sketch to
Stealing is
image.
the word I'd say more than learning, but yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Same thing for like sketch to image, which is like you use AI to like draw and you tell
Mhm.
AI what to draw. Now it's called drawing assist. So a little bit easier to know.
Sure.
And, they added some more features so you can pull up an old photo and add an AI, art to it, or you can use a text prompt to add AI art. And, the results are generally a little bit better, a little bit more detailed. Okay, fine. But I'm really just not sure that like this is the reason that's gonna cause people to go out and buy a new
Yeah,
phone.
yeah.
Um,
Just like Apple, it's funny, we saw it do sort of a summary of a couple paragraphs of a website. The summary was just as long as those
yeah.
paragraphs on the website. Just read the words.
Um,
Read.
Totally. And, also, once
We have,
again, kind of cribbing off
images
some
of,
other.
Sherlyn being really silly with the phone too, so there's that.
Yeah,
Oh, she's singing at the
definitely
beginning.
go watch our video.
Yeah.
A part of the we were testing out a new circle to search feature, which allows you to kind of hum into the phone and get like, Google to figure out, hey, what song am I trying to identify? It also just straight up listen to music like Shazam. And, Sherlyn, she got a little heat for not humming APT by Rose and Mark
Oh.
and super well. And so,
Mhm.
hey, and then she did it again and it was fine. But um some other, quick rundown of some new AI features. There's a new audio eraser. So obviously not something that is super new. We've seen Google do this,
Mhm.
but it uses AI to like analyze like wind noise and speech. So you can do like a live EQ and then, tune the things up on the fly. Super
That's a
easy.
big thing. I love that. But
Sure.
And then the
let's
other
keep talking.
big kind of new AI features, what Samsung is calling their Now Brief and kind of now Bar technologies. And this is basically like it's looking at what you do on your phone, it's looking at your calendar, your appointments, traffic, weather, and stuff like that. And it's trying to suggest,
Yeah.
hey, for example, you have a meeting at 9 o'clock, but your alarm is set for 8:30. You might want to bump that up a little bit. And so it's like, okay,
Yeah.
this is helpful. And the now bar is kind of an offshoot of that, and it's going to appear on the lock screen and in your notifications, and it'll do stuff like, hey, you want to watch, you like the Detroit Lions, or RIP Lions for this playoffs, but like it'll surface the score right inside your lock screen or on your notifications. But you can kind of already been able to do this before with some of Google's live
Mhm.
notifications, so not it doesn't feel like a monumental change from what we have already.
It's also
Um,
funny looking at Samsung's, screens, like, looking at their design for their UI and everything. Um, this is just an iPhone. Like, this is an iPhone, weather
it's
thing.
all converging. This is
It's a
convergent
Magic
evolution
Island
at its
updates.
finest.
These are Magic Island updates at the top and the bottom. Like, it is convergence, and I know, Apple itself also took a lot of influences from what was happening on Android phones, especially
Mhm.
around notch stuff, but I guess, like, the thing I've noticed is, like, Apple tends to work harder in developing a design language, and, wow, we're still just, like, copying. We're still just, like, in a straight up copy what these companies do. Okay, okay, sure, yeah.
Yep. There
Any
is
any
one
other
kind of
thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, there's one kind of like small hidden thing that's like Samsung also says that you can use like, natural voice language commands to kind of just manage your phone. So you can
Mhm,
go in and like, hey, go in the photos, the gallery app and be like, hey, find me a bunch of photos with voice commands of like of wine, or find me a bunch of photos from Las Vegas or whatever. And
mhm,
so, and you can even like tell it to like, hey, change the resolution of the screen or turn off Bluetooth or stuff like that. Or you can, say like, "Hey, remind me to watch, an upcoming sports game," and it'll go figure out which game you're talking about and put that calendar notification in the calendar app itself. And so it's
mhm.
like it's making it a little bit easier to do more complex commands just with your voice, and I think that's just good from a general accessibility and just usability point of view.
Yep,
But like I said before, I'm not sure that you can convince someone to buy, especially for the Ultra, a
mhm.
$1,300 phone just for kind of a revamp of AI features.
Especially a lot of those features seem like, they're hitting Google Gemini, they're hitting things in the cloud.
Hmm.
So, are
The
these coming
hum,
to older
like
Samsung phones?
yeah, the
Yeah.
hum to identify a song thing has been
Yes.
like it's existed within Google for a while now.
Mhm.
Right, and it's been available in Shazam for a while now. So it's like
Yeah.
once again, it's like because a lot of these features are available elsewhere, it's kind of a hard sell. That said, like the phone itself is still a great phone. I was using it
Mhm.
last night, kind of preparation for the review, and it's just like I love the screen, the design, a little bit curvier around the edges, very nice. And it's like, but the thing is, it's a really nice screen. It's a really nice phone, but
Mhm.
so was the S24 Ultra, and so was the S23 Ultra, and so it's like that becomes the really difficult, like kind of mental process or gymnastics you have to
Mhm.
figure out. It's like, is it worth upgrading from a year-old phone, especially a year-old
Probably not.
S24 Ultra?
Yeah.
Definitely not. From a 23
Yeah.
Ultra or 22 Ultra, maybe you got a little more, overhead to kind of capture. But yeah, it's
Mhm.
really tough. And I do
I
want to
feel like
mention.
Sam, like, just real quick, these phones don't exist for, like, for us, I guess, in a way. Like, they're not for the spec chasers or the people who are constantly upgrading. It's
Mhm.
for, like, you want the iPhone equivalent, right? Like, you want a average consumer to go into the store. What's the latest Samsung? Cool. Here's a new one. Doesn't really matter if it's that much different than last year's, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I want to mention two quick things. Some kind
Mhm.
of quirky things that Samsung did for the Ultra specifically. So they got rid of Bluetooth Low audio on the S Pen itself,
You're right.
and that means you can't do air actions anymore. Now, Samsung's justification is that no one was using air actions. They said like a very tiny fraction, and even
What
when they
are air
were,
actions, by the way?
air actions is like you can do gestures with the pen to control your phone. Um,
Yes, yes.
and so you're laughing, and kind of
Yep,
hints at
I
like why
remember.
Samsung made the move is because no one was doing that. And even when they were, Samsung says the only feature that people were using was using the click function on the feature to trigger the phone's camera as kind of
Mhm.
like a remote shutter thing.
Yep.
But because you can, still hold your hand up in front of the camera like that, or use your watch or your Galaxy Ring if you have one of those to as a remote shutter, that they kind of said, "Hey, we're going to take this off. It's going to make the S Pen a little bit more durable because there's no Bluetooth radios inside." And so it is a downgrade, but depending on how you
It's
use the
fine,
phone, you
it's
might not
fine.
even notice.
Um,
Um,
that was like one of those wild sometimes Samsung takes wild swings to be a little different, and sometimes that works out well for them. Sometimes it's
mhm,
like, "We're gonna make a big ass phone screen, it's called the Galaxy Note, you look ridiculous holding it up to your head." Doesn't matter. Actually, people just want big screens, and that banked for them.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They'll fail with the Fold, but still, like, do successive generations and end up, like, owning a big chunk of that market, so
yeah.
it's
And
all
then
about risk. Yeah.
the other weird quirk is that this phone officially does not support Qi 2, or at least full Qi 2.
Huh.
Samsung says the Galaxy S25 line is, quote, Qi 2 ready. Now
What
that
does that
means that
mean?
What does it mean?
so and unfortunately, and let me explain it, and it's
Yeah.
really annoyingly like niche. So you can still wireless charge at up to 15 watts. That's
Mhm.
kind of been around for a long time. But one of the key components of Qi 2 is that the S25 doesn't have magnets inside the phone.
What?
So all of the attachment points won't work unless you get a case that has magnets in the case.
You
And
had
so
one
that's
job, Samsung. Like,
I
yeah.
I know. And it's
Yeah.
like I
Why do we think this is? Is it because Samsung wanted the phone to be like that much lighter?
Mhm.
I have
Did
no idea. Samsung has not given us an official statement on it. I think they're doing it to save a buck.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
a purely cost saving measure, and it's really annoying because even as an Android person, MagSafe wireless charging on the iPhone is one of the best things that Apple has done to phones in recent history.
And MagSafe accessories, like, just in general, being able to, like, slap my phone on my, like,
exactly.
car
And then
dashboard,
in
slap
like a
Yeah.
a battery
almost
pack on it, yeah.
completely unprecedented move, Apple gave that tech to the Wireless Power Consortium,
Yep.
who built, use those specs and protocols to help inform what Qi 2 is.
Yeah.
And so Qi 2 is basically the exact same thing as MagSafe, but for all the other non-Apple
This
devices.
is hilarious
And
because
then
Apple,
and then
yeah,
Samsung doesn't follow through by making
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
S25 fully Qi 2 ready. And
It
it's like, yes,
it's just funny.
most people, they're gonna put their phone in a case, and they might, if they get the right case, they might not ever know the difference. But it's like, why?
Why?
You're just making it extra complicated because you couldn't follow through all the way,
Yep.
and it's really disappointing.
It's funny that Samsung is out here like, "I will clone the iPhone design a little bit." Like, I think the base S25 S24 and S25 look really iPhone-y. They'll steal a lot of the, like, UI designs. Apple gives you an actual functional tool that can make your hardware better. Nah, no thank you. What is
And
going
the
on
thing
over
is that
there?
like all of the like MagSafe accessories work with Qi 2 devices.
Yes,
So it's like
yes.
there's already a huge ecosystem of peripherals and accessories that you could use if you had, if we're fully Qi 2 compliant, but now you got to worry about getting the phone and then getting the right case, and then you're going to be okay.
So it's not Qi 2 compliant. I think the word is not Qi 2 compliant because Samsung are being little jerks here.
And
I don't know.
for
Yeah.
for me, I don't like cases. So that means I got to figure out some sort of weird sticker add-on, or there's people out there who have like, you can get
Mhm.
like sticky adhesive magnets and put them on yourself, and it's just like it's just a really clunky solution, and
Yeah.
I'm just generally not a fan of it.
I can't believe you're still case free, Sam. You have 2 kids now. It's like they're they're gonna
Phone,
destroy those
phones have
phones.
phones have
Yeah.
gotten a lot more durable. People used to look at a phone wrong and it would just break. But phones nowadays are actually pretty tough. As long as you
Mhm.
don't mind some scrapes or scuffs on like, the frame of the device. I'm not telling you to like, throw your phone off a cliff
Sam
or
will
whatever,
repay any broken phone that you have.
but like, give it
Sam's
a
yeah.
try. Like I drop my phone constantly. I'm not saying like I'm a perfect human. I don't drop my phone.
Right,
I
right.
try not to drop it on cement or concrete, but
You have
like
a Galaxy Fold. Like you main foldables.
yeah. And
Huh.
so if you drop it on like a wood floor, you're generally going to be fine. Um,
Wood floors, yeah. Yeah, the problem is you go outside and it's like concrete. It's asphalt. It's
mhm.
or you're somewhere it's marble. Like places that will just destroy the sort of like protective Gorilla Glass stuff. So I'm shocked, Sam. Like it has been a while since I've like fully shattered a phone, but still, even when I would get a new phone and like not put it in a case or put a screen, a protector on it, just being in my jeans pocket will add little nicks and little scratches to the screen. I'm like, I don't know why this keeps happening. I
Yeah, I
thought
mean,
we were beyond this.
I think for me, it's like I've come fully around to the idea that like it's sad, but gadgets are sort of disposable, and it's like no one's talking about like I'm gonna put some sweet patina on my phone, right? Like these are not antiques, right? You're not passing them down to your kids in 10 years.
Well, some people are though. Like that's the thing. Well, the thing about having like an Apple device, right? I've got some great patina on my old iPads, and it's great for kids. Like I have a
Sure, sure,
sixth
sure.
generation iPad from 2018 that's busted, that has a cracked screen. It still streams video real good. It plays
But
Peppa
but these are
Pig,
not
and
family heirlooms. You're not putting him in your treasure vault and be like, look at these, marvels of
it's
yesteryear.
less an heirloom and more like, hey, I have this device from a couple years ago, and normally, what do? It's if it's an Android device, most often it's like trashed or it goes to electronic recycling. A lot of other like I do appreciate a device that can last 5 years. If you can go longer than 5 years, oh man, then you're in a special pedigree, and we are well past 5 years with that iPad at least. Yeah.
Speaking of devices that are lasting 5 years plus, my microphone on the iPhone SE2 came back. I don't know why it did, but I'm very happy
It's
that
you
it
can't
did.
trust it. You can't trust it.
I can't
Yeah.
trust it. I should get another phone. But Sam, let's return to the Qi 2 charging for just 1 second.
Sure.
Does this mean that if you were to put this S25 on top of one of the like MagSafe charging pucks,
Mhm.
would it charge at all? Would you need to perfectly
If
balance
you
it
if you
in
put
order
it
for it to charge?
perfectly yeah, if you put it perfectly on top of wherever the wireless charging coil is inside the phone, it would work. But because there's no magnets, if you move the phone at all or move the
Yeah.
charging puck at all, it would just slide right off.
It's the
Goodness
killer
gracious.
problem with wireless charging, and which is that's why it's taken a decade for wireless charging to really take off, is that you plug in a phone, it's plugged. That's it.
Mhm.
You put it on a unmagnetized wireless charging puck, somebody sneezes and that phone moves half an inch, you're not charging anymore and you're screwed. So,
I mean, that's
Oh,
the way a lot of charging pads worked
yeah.
not too long ago, within the
Yep.
last couple of years. I remember seeing like a bunch of third-party ones that were kind of like, not Ghost in the Shell. What the
Mhm.
heck am I talking about? Full Metal Alchemist
Right,
style,
right.
like alchemy symbols or something, and it'll like do a cool like light show when you put your phone down. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you are returning to the logic of charging pads rather than the really satisfying like that
You
you
know what's
get
great?
out of
Does this
MagSafe.
device work? I'm gonna unplug this device. This is what I use next to my desk right now. This is one of those Belkin magnetized charging things, and you put this
sure.
on, and it's when I'm doing video calls, the phone can kind of follow me, but also like you're good. You're good. It feels good. Magnets.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
they work? They work really well for wireless charging.
But, unfortunately, they're not in the S25 unless you
What are you doing, Samsung? Yeah.
I would also one small thing, a lot of times when we get review devices, especially phones, the manufacturer will include a case with the phone because obviously, you don't want to mess up the review device until you get the review out. Makes a lot of sense, right?
Mhm.
Samsung included a case with our, S25 Ultra review
Uh-huh.
unit, doesn't have the magnets inside. So even though Samsung gave us cases, and Samsung says they are going to make some first party cases along with all the other, third party manufacturers that have magnets inside. Even Samsung didn't provide a case that would add the full Qi 2
Yeah.
compatibility.
I feel
And
like
it's just,
Unfortunately, you can't wireless
Mhm.
charge even with the review units. Cool, 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 cool,
You
cool.
I
can,
mean,
just not magnetically,
yeah, I can
not
use
with
a
that, not
regular
with
charging
magnets.
pad, but just not any of the fun Qi 2 magnetic ones.
This is a crack story for you, Sam, or Sherlyn, or somebody like, and it really the only people are like the crazy gadget heads. But what the hell are you thinking, Samsung? Like, the world is fully on magnets for wireless charging. Qi 2 is here, Apple's on it, sharing stuff. That there must be some like deeper, dumber story here. Is it just that Samsung wants to sell their own cases too? Like they want people to buy phones, but also buy their cases, and cases are a big business, for a lot of companies. So
Mhm.
maybe that's part of it.
So we're going to have the full review of the Samsung S25 coming up in the next few weeks. If you have any feelings about the new stuff that Samsung announced in the first Unpacked of 2025, please email us at podcast@engadget.com.
Yeah. I feel like Ben, we're just gonna have to like rush through this and maybe
Oh yeah, that's
dedicate
fine.
a future episode to like a deeper,
Yeah.
exploration of what's happening here. But okay, let me just do this real quick and then we can start wrapping. Okay, well, we originally wanted to spend a lot of time talking about like the various many things the Trump administration has started doing this week. Now that he is, he's back in office, back in the White House. There's a lot of stuff happening, and it's all very, very sad and making me sigh all the time. But real quick, we'll roll through them, and I think we're going to dedicate a future episode to a longer discussion of like what is happening with the new Trump administration. But so far, withdrawing from the Paris Accords once again. Um, Wind energy pause, because remember he didn't like wind energy. National energy emergency. They're gonna refill U.S. strategic petroleum reserves. Really, really wonderful for the fossil fuel industry. I've heard some commentary around that, and everyone's like, "We what emergency? We are the biggest producer of natural gas and of oil. We're a pretty big producer of oil. Like, yeah, we are doing really well, but the fossil fuel industry will make more money. Trump is revoking Biden's target for automakers to sell 50% EVs by 2030. Of course, there's also stopping funding for EV charging stations through the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Formula Program. I do wonder if that's going to be a helpful thing for Elon Musk, because Tesla already invested a lot of money they also got from the government to build out its charging network. It doesn't really help them if there's more charging, right? Because people will just go to Tesla superchargers. Hasn't been announced, but a lot of people are talking about the administration considering killing the EV tax credit stuff, rolling back Biden's AI framework. Anything quickly you want to mention, Ben, just happening here?
How can we possibly build $500 billion worth of data center in Texas in 4
Well,
years? This, like,
magic.
the scale of this boggles the mind. Like, yeah, eventually you can put in $500 billion worth of computers and
Mhm.
their attendant infrastructure with the warehouses and cooling systems and all of that you would need to do this enormous scale Project Stargate stuff. That it's a project by OpenAI and NVIDIA and ARM and
Yeah.
Oracle and Microsoft. But I really have to wonder whether or not this is going to end up looking like the Wisconsin Foxconn
It's gonna
plant.
be Foxconn. Everyone's like, he's doing a Foxconn, like within hours of becoming president once again. That is a lot of money that may not actually make it to an AI data center or really anything. So
Also,
just
it's
Well, I
just
checking in.
such an enormous
Mhm,
amount of money that, like,
mhm.
people talk about, like, the amount of money that just passes through the Pentagon and disappears.
Yeah,
How much of that money is going to disappear? How many, like, contractors are going to be charging,
yeah.
$900 for each screw they put in?
Money is going to disappear. Like this is what happened in Russia. This is it tends to what happens in oligarchy. I don't know
it happened during the
systems
pandemic with the
happened during the
PPP
pandemic.
loans.
Yeah,
Yep, yep,
yeah.
yep, yep.
But you keep your rich friends happy. Seeing everybody at the inauguration party, seeing Mark Zuckerberg and his wife all dolled up and ready to like hang out with the Trump administration. It really does feel like, oh yeah, the rich are celebrating because they are gonna milk this for all it's worth. It is gonna be like the PPE thing, kind of all over again.
It's
It's
gonna
so
be
bad.
big time government contracts, and, like, really don't be surprised when you see Palmer Luckey in the news again.
God.
He went directly from Oculus to defense contracting?
Well, to he a smart border control, like that's what it is, because he's funded by Peter Thiel, and it's all like it's a whole thing. We are going to be talking about all this stuff, folks, because it's all really, really sad. We're barely mentioning the fact that Elon Musk did a full-on Nazi salute twice. Twice. And what really makes me sad is that we have not learned anything. Like as a country, our media organizations haven't learned anything. I saw the New York Times, I saw the Washington Post be like, Elon Musk made a controversial hand gesture.
Right,
No,
they're
dude.
calling it the Roman salute, which I guess is
No, dude.
technically accurate, but
I
you
mean,
know
yes,
that's not what
it's
it is.
historically accurate, but let's also think about how
Yeah.
we just mentioned Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel bankrupted Gawker on purpose because he was annoyed that Gawker outed him as a gay man.
Yeah.
So, like, these guys have so much money. If they wanted to bring petty lawsuits that would lead to more layoffs at the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Chicago Tribune, if the Chicago Tribune was brave enough to say
That yes.
like
They're
screw
afraid
this
of
guy.
lawsuits. That's why ABC
Yes.
settled their fight with Trump as well. Like this is the world we're living in too. Pay attention to facts, people. Pay attention, like when we see a video feed of something happen and then it's edited and after the fact, people are saying, "Oh no, that's not really what happened." It's getting really, really Orwellian really quickly over here.
But
But
I
we will,
have to
yeah,
you really got to shout out Wired for finding a really
yes,
smart way
yes.
around this, using the same kind of logic that Andrew Gillum used in his debate with Ron DeSantis. Their headline was "Neo-Nazis love the Nazi-like salute Elon Musk made at Trump's inauguration." If
Good,
the
good.
neo-Nazis on the internet, if the founder of Gab likes what Elon did, then what does it really matter about the discussion about whether or not it was like an actual Nazi salute? We're going to keep talking about this. This is not going to be something that is just 1 week of discussion.
This is a big, big red flag too. Like we've seen Elon Musk retweet racist and anti-Semitic memes. We've seen him like really be buddy buddy with white supremacists. But this felt like a real big moment because like with his whole heart, he hit his heart
And with a
and
small
did the
grunt.
and with a
Multiple
small grunt and like
times.
these like his online friends and the 4chan people will say, "Oh yeah, he's just trolling." That's the entire point though. He's trolling to the point where it is just full support of fascism. It doesn't matter if you're joking or not. Like this is the reality he's building. Anyway, things are pretty dark. That's why we didn't start with this conversation because it's all kind of scary. But we are definitely going to follow these stories. I want to talk to people, especially working in misinformation and also media manipulation, because I saw several video streams that specifically cut out the Nazi salute, and that was like at NBC, that was at major media organizations, and like that is the stuff most people will see. Most people are not going to see the Wired article or the online conversation, and then this stuff will just be whitewashed, and then it'll be like, oh yeah, some progressive activists think he was doing a Nazi thing, but he was just really excited. It was his
And then it comes around
potential
to the
autism.
idea
Yeah.
of like, if the video feed that most people saw was not the thing that
Yeah.
actually existed, was actually the gesture that he made, then people are going to say, you know what, that's AI video manipulation.
Yep.
Also, in the show notes, I don't know, someone dropped a link to a German paper,
Yes.
DZ, and so the headline, translated is that was a Hitler salute. It's a Hitler salute.
Nazi
It's
salute.
a
Yeah.
Hitler salute, and it's like if Germany, people
Mhm.
from Germany, who obviously are most familiar with this and are actually, pretty sensitive about
Mhm.
how, these things have, happened since World War II. If that's what they're calling it, I'm gonna say, hey, maybe they got a point.
Maybe they have. I mean, a lot of people have a point. This is a whole conversation. I will say, DZ did a really interesting thing too, where they also basically blocked the actual gesture because they can't. I think you can't even show it in Germany.
Yeah, no,
German
you
has
can.
very harsh
Yeah.
laws about portraying Nazi
Mhm.
symbolism today, and so like for them to like take it as seriously as they are, and then
Yeah.
for us to portions of the U.S. to kind of just blow it off as is like it didn't mean anything. That seems like a really weird disconnect.
What a world we're living in. It's only been We are in week 3 of 2025. Everybody, week 1, 2, or week 4, technically. But yeah, I wish we did. I would have loved to live in just precedented times. I would love to live in normal times. But anyway, we're going to be talking about all this and certainly what the Trump administration is going to be doing for the tech industry, for the world at large, for the environment, against the environment, I'd say. But yeah, if you have thoughts, drop us an email, podcast@engadget.com. I'm going to blow through the other sections.
Yeah, let's just go straight to picks, actually.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to pop culture picks. What do you want to shout out, Sam?
I've just been watching Sakamoto Days.
I saw that. Yeah.
It's really good. It's the whole premise is that there's a very famous like spy who just like godlike good at everything spy related. And then he retired to become a kind of your standard convenience store owner.
He's a family man.
Yeah, he's a family man. He got a little chubby, he got a little fat, but he's still like just as like cool and as good as he was before. And I know like some of like the manga diehard people were like kind of clowning on the anime because the animation quality or the art isn't quite as good as what they're expecting from.
Yeah,
that always happens. I was like, just go give it a watch for yourself. It's on Netflix, pretty accessible, and I think if you like a good action anime, you'll probably get sucked in right away.
it's fun. It's funny. Like it's the thing is like I was excited for because Netflix was promoting this for a while. And I think it's just fine. Like it's perfectly fine. I wish the animation were better. Also, like it just really sunk in. They're just remaking Rurouni Kenshin, which itself was sort of like an offshoot of all the like revenge assassin like movies from the 70s
Yeah,
and
yeah.
80s and everything. Like there were a ton of movies that did that. Rurouni Kenshin built this whole like mythology around a master assassin who became this like bumbling peaceful person. I'm getting a lot of those vibes, but also without the energy, without the fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sakamoto is definitely more comedic, definitely more lighthearted.
But it's also ultraviolet. It's lighthearted and ultraviolet,
which I think is kind of a fun kind of dichotomy. But
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's very anime in that, like, yes, he can block bullets with chopsticks.
Yes.
It's sort of like you're just gonna have to like, just go with the flow. I'm gonna check out more episodes though. It's not as good as Dan to Dan, which is a complete like, ooh,
Yeah,
what a
well, that was
masterpiece that is.
easily one of my favorite shows of 2024.
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about Sakamoto Days as well, so that covers it. But yeah, check it out. It's on Netflix right now. If you just want like something to turn off your brain and like forget about the world a little bit, it's perfectly fun at that. Did I shout out Pantheon again? Pantheon's real good. I think I mentioned that last time. But
Yeah,
I
you
finished
mentioned it a
Pantheon.
couple weeks ago.
I finished Pantheon. That is also on Netflix right now. That is fantastic. So if you want like a cool thing that is cyberpunky, that has lots of shades of Ghost in the Shell, there are references to Neon Genesis Evangelion in there, but it's an American show that was on AMC and just wasn't a big hit there. It's on Netflix now. Pantheon, check it out. And
that actually sounds like right up my alley. So
it is right up your. You will love it, Sam. You want to do the wrap, Ben?
Yep. So we're going to do a wrap up and then we're going to do a little bit of talking to chat. But man, this has been a long and meaty episode. So I don't think we can stick around for that long.
It's actually pretty late. Before you do the wrap too, I want to shout out the YouTube thing because I didn't do that earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, be sure to stay tuned to the end of this episode. Again, I'll be chatting with the YouTube project manager, Jack Greenberg, specifically about YouTube Premium. They announced its new features this week, and I took this as an opportunity to talk about, like, that particular service, which I'm a huge fan of.
Okay, thank you everybody for listening. Our theme music is by game composer Dale North. Our outro music is by our former managing editor, Terrence O'Brien. The podcast is produced by me, Ben Ellman. You can find Sam online at
Sam Rutherford on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it.
And you can find Devindra online at
Devindra on Blue Sky. I'm on the TikToks at Devindra Talks there, but I also talk podcasts about movies and TV at the Filmcast at thefilmcast.com.
And you can find me at heybellman at bluesky.social. Email us at podcast@engadget.com. Leave us a review on iTunes and subscribe on anything that gets podcasts. That includes Spotify.
All right. Thanks for sitting around, chat.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you, chat. So very
and
quickly,
Sam, if you got to run, feel free. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm good.
Okay.
Let's get through some of the things that we talked about. This is so Declan had a couple of comments in relation to the 5090 card,
Hmm.
basically talking about the frame rate, and I think the refresh rate. Can the human eye even see that? Let's not even
Let's
start
not.
that
That's a
argument
whole.
yet.
The gamers are like, I want 360 hertz. I want 480 hertz. There are people who think that they can really, and maybe some like they really esports players, maybe they can really see it. To me, 120 hertz. Like I'm good with 120 hertz. If you go up to 144, 165, like even smoother, I don't. 240 is good because the monitor I'm testing right now, which is at Alienware, like still can do 240 4K. It's cool to fully hit your monitor's full refresh rate, but G-Sync and FreeSync and everything kind of like make that
Yeah.
even
I
if you
mean,
don't hit that these
there
days.
were a couple new 500 hertz monitors that got
Yep.
announced back at CES, but the kind of rule of thumb is that you generally only notice s- like really notice when the refresh rate doubles.
Yep.
So, if you're going from like, 120 to 144 hertz, you're not gonna be able to tell.
Yep.
And obviously, the higher you go to, the kind of less there is a little bit of a diminishing return. It's like, so
Hmm.
if you go from 240 or 250 to 500, like, yeah, if you're a professional esports gamer, you might be able to tell. But for
Yeah.
most of us at home, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
We're still living
Also,
in a
is there
console world where we're not hitting 60 hertz, all the
yeah,
time.
Right,
So
120
or
hertz is the
wait,
dream for
yeah,
consoles, right?
yeah,
talk about 60 hertz or FPS?
same thing.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, FPS. Those games aren't hitting 60 FPS, which can't fill out a 60 hertz screen, which makes them look bad. That's what leads to choppiness and weirdness.
Right. And you definitely gotta take it as a holistic kind of approach, like we were talking about before, where you gotta have a GPU that's strong enough to power your monitor, and you gotta have a CPU
Yeah.
that can, hold everything up. And if you're on the console side, like, get a TV that can do 120 hertz VRR and you'll be good. Don't you don't have to worry about 240 hertz if you're playing on PS5 or Xbox, or definitely not Switch.
Hmm.
And also Declan said, if it's $2,000, does it play the games and get all the achievements for you? Don't give them any ideas.
No, that's what
This
they're.
is supposed
Yeah.
to be like a big platform for AI stuff too.
Right,
Well,
yeah,
you know what? People spend all their time watching streamers playing all the games and doing all the stuff. That's what you want, right? You don't actually want to play the games. You just want to sit back,
right.
watch the games play themselves.
Certain rich guys also
Yeah.
pay people to play patent
I
stuff
mean,
for them.
NVIDIA is already working on AI
Yeah.
NPCs, so you're gonna have
Yes.
AI
Yes.
players pretty soon.
Yeah, I had a whole rant about that. NVIDIA was not a fan, but that will be
Remember
a part of these cards. Yeah.
remember when sometimes you would play against computer players and they would call it AI?
I mean, that is AI. That is that's an artificially constructed persona that is following certain rules. But we call that AI, and now it's like, yeah, now it's like a different sense of AI. But hey, when it comes to computer players, I think that's what we're used to. That's what we're used to in games.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating an NPC buddy that is going to play PUBG with you and can't like do basic shit, like to me, that's a whole other like can of worms.
Mark Dell says that
Mhm.
Civ, Yakuza, Monster Hunter Avowed, and Kingdom Come are all next month. So that's
Oh
going to
boy.
be a good beginning of 2025 for video games.
Mhm,
Kevin
mhm.
says about the Samsung Unpacked that it was a Samsung snore fest apart from the slim phone. And those camera bumps look like ugly zits. I
They
hate the
look
word
awful.
zit, so I don't like that you made me say that, but I
They look
gotta,
bad.
yeah. It's also like it isn't even put in any kind of like a pleasing format or something. I like the fact that the iPhone cameras, especially on the iPhone Pro,
Mhm.
like they're oriented in kind of a like triangle sort of thing. But
In
no,
their
this
own, like,
is just like
little, like, world, yeah, yeah.
a bunch of cameras all the way straight down.
That's what Android phone people have been doing, right, Sam? Like, that's
I mean,
everyone.
it's
Xiaomi,
mostly
everybody, yeah.
Samsung. The OnePlus 13 has a
Mhm.
huge circular camera module, which I don't love. I'm not a huge fan of. I think Google is probably doing it the best with like their camera bar, camera visor thing, where at least it's distinctive and they kind of black out the individual lenses, so it just looks like one kind of you know section, and it's a little bit more cohesive, I guess.
Mhm.
And then D-Man says that I love that Engadget does Playdate coverage too.
Yes.
I've been saying in our internal communications that Cheyenne is doing a great job on this
Yes.
She
because
loves
the
she's doing
Playdate
good
is
stuff,
a
yeah.
consistently interesting little machine, and it
Mhm.
would be way too easy to just forget that it exists.
And this is
So
why, like, I'm so excited about that and the portables. Like, this stuff is so much more interesting than a $2,000 video card that nobody can really buy or touch, right?
Mhm.
Also, that was a big win from Teenage Engineering. Did
Yeah.
Teenage Engineering also do the case for the Rabbit R1?
Yeah,
They
they
did.
did, and, I
Okay, yeah,
believe
that's
the Rabbit guy is now on the
How did you
board
have
or
that
something.
just
It's
at
right
the
here.
ready?
Because it's trash. It just sits on my desk because it's garbage, and I occasionally use it as a coaster.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
It
if
is
any
just pure
other
garbage.
tech reviewers are watching this and they don't want their Rabbit R1, please DM me on Blue Sky because I would love to build up a museum of old defunct tech.
I mean,
That's
I
just
have
a
all sorts
beautiful
of good stuff.
item, though.
It is. I mean, I have a play date, so it's like the Rabbit feels repetitive. Like it's the same basic design without the cool joystick, you know? So yeah, it's nice. It's fine.
So Mo Esquire says, as an enthusiastic Samsung S24 Ultra user, I am appalled at your admittedly fair criticism of Samsung's design. Appalled. Also, great
Appalled.
job as always, pod team. Mo, I think you were the one who said that the Engadget live stream was appointment viewing for you. And you know what? I still think about how nice a compliment that is.
We appreciate you.
It's all good. It's all good. I
Also,
appreciate
like, just saying the words appointment viewing are like a way to get directly into the like mind of a media producer. That's like a root hacking phrase or something like that.
it.
Wes Jackson says, "Hey guys, got on late today, but thanks for the show as always. You guys are awesome." D-Man says, "Sakamoto Days sounded cool. I
Mhm.
loved the Way of the House Husband. Extremely funny." I think that might have been why I like when you were talking about Sakamoto Days. Maybe I saw D-Man's comment out of the
He is
corner
a
of
house
my eye,
husband.
and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, well, yeah." And it was talking about how he like retired to run a store or something, right?
Mhm.
So kind of similar to Way of the House Husband. I think
I
that's
just I want to say I just noticed D-Man was talking about the Acer Nitro Blaze 11, and he says he wants something bigger. D-Man,
No.
I
What
don't know how big your
just
hands are or like what sort of like massive backpack slash like sidecar you're bringing around. That thing is huge.
well,
I can't.
there are the like holsters, Sam, that can go on a controller, like an Xbox controller or
Yeah,
a Sony
yeah,
controller.
yeah.
You take that, you put an iPad on top of that, you put that there you go. That's what you want.
I cannot imagine a 13-inch gaming handheld, but hey, if there's people who want to do it, bless you.
Yeah. People are we're gonna wrap soon, but there's random tech
yeah.
I could pull that people are asking.
Mark Dell says, "What is Ben eating?" It is once again cereal. It's once again the like blueberry cinnamon flax cereal. That's just like my normal part of my normal breakfast. And
Nice.
I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be seen eating it because I was trying to time it for when the stream was focused
You
only on
can
Sam. But
hide.
then
You
Dev
can hit
changed the
hide.
camera again.
Yeah.
Gotta be sneaky.
Because you gotta be sneaky. You can always hit hide, I think. I have this thing, which I'm really excited about, actually. This is one of the Anker new charging stations.
Why don't you
200.
focus on your camera for a second? So
Yeah, well, then that requires more work than I want to
Well,
do right now.
but bring it
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
way up so people can
Let me
see it.
see here. Bring it all the
So
way up,
while
and
you're
there we
doing
go.
that, DPro9 was talking in relation to the NVIDIA 5090 graphics card. Says, could you use it for crypto mining? You could,
You sure
but
could.
we've gotten to a point where you're going to be like completely mollywopped by like
Yeah, the idea of
enormous.
solo mining,
Yeah,
especially
yeah, like
Bitcoin, is sort
Yeah.
of a non thing. Although there was a story, I think 2 or 3 months ago, where there was one solar miner who got credit for solving the latest block on the Bitcoin blockchain, and he took home the reward for block. I can't remember what the actual like monetary figure was, but some solo guy took home the entire reward for a single block
That's
a couple
wild.
months ago. That's kind of cool.
Okay,
That's
but
wild.
is that kind of similar to those things in arcades? Like it has an arm that pushes back and forth, and it like pushes
Yes,
the quarters
you
off.
can sort of
So he
like,
happened
yeah.
to place the right quarter at the right time, but the people who did most of the work are still the warehouses full of GPUs that
Yes.
are
Yeah, it's
like
definitely more of a
working
luck
on that.
than like
Yeah, yeah.
skill thing at that point. But hey, it's nice. It's nice to see a little guy get a win, I guess.
Nice to
Yeah, the
see one.
little guy got a win like accidentally, unfortunately.
I mean, the little guy who's, I don't know, invested how much money in that whole process, but yeah,
So
the whole
Dev,
thing.
what were you going to show? The
I was showing
Anchor.
off the Anchor thing. This is a smart charging station. It's a power station, 250 watts, and it just has USB ports. So it's like USB-C, USB-A. You plug a laptop right into it, and it'll charge at the fastest charging speed, or a tablet, or multiple devices. And in my office, I always have multiple laptops, multiple tablets, multiple
I
things
I,
to
I have
do.
a similar thing on my desk, and I
Yeah.
love them because it means I can leave the giant
Yes.
brick when I'm reviewing laptops. I just leave it in the
Yep.
box, and then I already have cables set up.
No
And
managing bricks.
it streamlines the review process just a little bit, which I appreciate.
Yep.
I'm going to be traveling next month, and all I plan on bringing with me is an Anchor 60-watt charger.
There you go.
And that's going to be able to charge my laptop. It's going to be able to
Mhm.
charge my phone. It's going to be able to charge my Switch because I am going to be playing Balatro on the plane. So yeah, it's way easier. I do have like a MagSafe charger for my laptop, but
Yeah,
I
that'll
use it
plug in too.
actually pretty seldomly these days. I'm mostly
Uh-huh.
charging via my monitor, my
Mhm.
external monitor, or via this thing.
Mhm.
It's really interesting.
Huh. Huh. Markel
Okay,
says he
so
has 2 of these things, so that's cool. That's cool. The cool people have them in their offices, right? I think we can wrap, yeah.
yep. So thanks everybody for sticking around. Really sorry that we couldn't spend a bit more time talking to you. We're hoping that the tech news, the gadget focused news, slows down a little bit, even if the tech companies and tech platforms are going to continue making news in Washington. But we're hoping that it slows down a little bit so we can talk a little bit more to chat. Still, all of the stuff that you put in helps us make the show better. It makes the audio show better. Hey, if you're only a live stream viewer, why not download the episode? Just help us with the numbers on all fronts. So video comes to you via Devindra. Actually, Devindra's doing basically everything, OBS and all sorts of stuff. I do production and the audio production. Sam just sits there and looks pretty, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, folks. We're
Thank
out.
you.